Naveen is an entrepreneur through and through. You know, we're going to be talking about today a lot about moonshots and turning entrepreneurs into the next superpower. You know, maybe you can start us off a little bit about kind of how you think about moonshots and creating businesses as someone who's started a lot of extraordinary organizations.
Well, first of all, thank you, Will. It's always amazing to be at the SU Global Summit. Isn't this wonderful? Right?
Yeah.
And clap for him, Will Weisman, for putting it together.
All good. Thank you. All right.
Now, let's talk about moonshots. Every one of us, when we wake up in the morning, we want to do something amazing. But guess what happens? Right after we wake up, the life takes over, and we're back to the same grind over and over again. And don't you ever wonder, what if? That what if is your calling? What if you can find out what you actually care enough about that you're willing to die for, and then you live for it? What is it that you're willing to do that if you had everything in your life, you had all the money that you ever wanted, a great family, everything, what is it that you would do? And if you do that now, you will get everything that you want. And that's what I call moonshots, right? So to me, I'm doing a couple of moonshots, and I can tell you why I care enough about them. To me, there is no better calling than to find out how do we help billions of people live happily and without any chronic diseases. And that's one of the moonshots that I'm currently handling. I started this company called Microbiome, and here's the very interesting part. Brown guys cannot pronounce the word "we" as in Victor.
Biome. I'll translate it if we get into that.
Translate it for you. Guess what you do? You start a company that you can't pronounce, right? So having said that, that's we as in Victor, I-O-M-E. But that's not important. What's really important is, what is it that we are trying to do? One day I decided that enough is enough. There's got to be a way where we can create a world where illness is purely optional. What if we can find out what's happening inside our body, and what if we can do something about it so chronic diseases simply becomes truly a matter of choice? And it so happened, I ran into a technology that was being developed at Los Alamos National Lab for the biodefense work. And what they were trying to find out was exactly that. If a bad actor were to get hold of something, how would they ever know what's making people sick? So they came up with an amazing technology that is able to look at functionally everything that's happening inside your body and tell you exactly what organisms are there, how active they are, but most importantly, what is it they are doing. And when I heard about that, I said, oh, if they know what's making people sick, why can't we apply and keep people healthy? And that was the genesis of what we did. So today we have a company that does a functional microbiome test, and that's just the beginning. It looks inside your gut. A simple touch of a poop will tell you everything you ever wanted to know what's going on. It can tell you, is the spinach that you are eating, is it healthy for you, or is it harming you? Is the oatmeal really good for you, or is it harming you? For me, my kryptonites were spinach, oats, almonds, and avocado. And all I did was stop eating the things what I thought were healthy, and my life changed.
Your energy level is just absolutely skyrocketed,
so imagine,
right?
You saw me last year, did not have half this energy, right? No, that's not true. My energy has always been high, and I tell you why. I love what I do. This is what I live for. When I jump out of the bed at 4 a.m. in the morning, it's not because I have a company to run. It's because I have a purpose that I'm going after.
So how do other people find that? How do they discover that? Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Thank you. As I said, every one of us has that purpose. And the only way we find is really start listening to the faint voice inside you. What are you willing to die for? What do you really would do if you had everything in your life? And most of us sitting here have most of the things we want in our life. But we keep going and going, and we never look back and say, what do we care about? And I'll tell you, my movement came. As most of you know, I grew up in India. We were very, very poor. We didn't have a food to eat, and we didn't have a place to stay. I came to this country with absolutely nothing, $5, and then to speak the language. And any measure of success you look at it, God has been very kind to us. With that kindness, I kept thinking, now that I have everything, what can I do? And I start thinking about how do I repay my debt back to the society? And to me, what were the problems that could help billions of people? Saving humanity from potential extinction, which is all of us as humans are living on this planet called planet Earth. Imagine if our spacecraft that we live on ever gets hit by a large asteroid. We will all get destroyed. The planet will survive. The human species will become the dinosaur species. And if any one of us could hear a dinosaurs rolling in their graves, what would they be saying? If they had one good entrepreneurial dinosaur, they would be on the moon and the Mars and beyond. Let's not be the dinosaur species that talks about that. Right after that, as that project is now coming to fruition, and we're going to be launching our first mission to the moon next year. And by the way, don't let someone else tell you that. We are the only company in the universe that has permission to leave Earth orbit and landing on any celestial body.
This is a company called Moon Express.
Right. Now imagine that company, Moon Express, a child who grew up in poverty could dream of going to the moon and make that happen. So despite my friend Elon and Richard and Jeff talk about going to space, they're all stuck in the low Earth orbit. Tell them to get ambitious. Right. Now, right after I was finishing the project, I kept thinking, what are the things that the two big problems I could solve? And I said, it has to be education or health. And I looked at both of them, and it turned out the problems were very, very similar. In a sense, in both cases, people believe the system is broken. In both cases, people believe it's not working for them. It turns out that neither of the systems are actually broken. They're doing exactly what they were designed to do. Our education system was designed to teach us skills, and we could use those skills for the rest of our lives. And that was a wonderful life we lived in the industrial era. In the world of exponential technology that we are talking about today, it doesn't matter what skill you learn, by the time you graduate, that skill becomes obsolete. Right? Now, what do you do in that case? You have to develop an education system that is designed to learning to learn, learning to be adaptive, learning to be multidisciplinary rather than unidisciplinary, because the problems don't tend to be unidisciplinary. The problems tend to be multidisciplinary. Learning to work together. In today's education system, if there is a question and I say, hey, Will, do you know what the answer is? They call that cheating. And in my company, we call that a teamwork, right? That's the problem, isn't it? Right? And that's a problem someone needs to fix. And then I looked at the healthcare, the same problem. It was designed for the times when people were dying from infectious diseases, and they waged the war against bacteria and viruses, without realizing that we as humans are walking, talking ecosystem. And let me tell you my strength, and I'm going to tell you exactly why you can do that. The fact I came to healthcare without having a little bit, tiny bit of knowledge about healthcare. I knew nothing about healthcare. And that made me the most dangerous person the healthcare industry has ever seen. Because no one could ever understand what is it that I was going to do, because I have no expertise in that. Because once you become an expert in a field, you become useless in that field. Because as an expert, the best you can do is to make an incremental improvement of 10% or 15%. If you want to change something 10 times or 100 times, you have to challenge the foundation of everything that experts have taken it for granted. So I came to healthcare, and it turns out very interesting things I learned. First of all, there are more foreign cells in our body than the human cells. But that's not surprising at all. We all knew that. Here's what surprised me most. What makes us who we are is not our genes. It's really our expression of our genes. Our human DNA that we get from our mom and dad only expresses about 20,000 genes. The microbes in our gut, 40 trillions, not billions, 40 trillions of them, they produce somewhere between 2 million to 20 million genes. That means at best, we are 1% human, right? Imagine that for a second. We are 1% human. Our brain, we think this is our primary brain, this is our secondary brain. What if we are wrong? What if this was the brain? And let me tell you a story about how humans were created. And this is a story, that's a tongue-in-cheek story, and then I'm going to come back and tell you the scientific basis for this story. So, Will, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Bring it.
All right.
It's the easiest interview I've ever
how
had
many
to do.
of you actually believe you know how humans were created? Well, most of you probably, the Adam and Eve, right? Wrong. This is how it all happened. One day, we know, first of all, let me give you the basic background. We know on the planet Earth, the life started about 3.5 billion years ago. And you start to see the amoeba and the single-cell organisms and these bacteria and viruses start to grow. So life started about 3.5 billion years ago. The humans only came in the last couple of million years. How did human come to be? So here's how all it happened. So close your eyes and listen and start to dream about what I'm about to tell you. So close your eyes, and I'm going to tell you a story how it all happened. Imagine all these microorganisms are getting together. And one day, they all say to each other, we are sick and tired of living in this small space in Africa. We want to take over the world. And they all looked at each other, except one of them said, I know what to do. What would you do? What if we can create something bipedal? And trillions of us could live inside it. All we have to do is keep this thing healthy. We can make it crave any food we want. It's going to go run around everywhere, try to find the food for us. It's going to go everywhere, poop everywhere. It's going to spread us everywhere, and we're going to take over the world. And they created humans. However, there is a problem. Right after they created humans, they start to wonder. Just like today, everyone is wondering, what if someday artificial intelligence becomes smarter than humans? What will happen to us humans, right? We worry. Elon thinks we are all going to be destroyed. These bacteria and organisms they thought, oh my God, what have we done? And they reassembled. Master, we have a problem. What's the problem, son? Aren't you worried we created humans? What are we going to do about them? What if someday they became smarter than us? What are we going to do? Master says, don't worry one bit. I'm going to tell you some secrets. Inside their cell, this thing they call mitochondria, this is one of our bacterial brother right inside their cell. In fact, we talk to it all the time. That's the one that supplies all the energy to their cell. Anytime they go out of control, we tell our brother to shut them off, and they are done. Master, that's really brilliant. However, you're not even thinking right. What is that, son? They're starting to develop this thing called brain. What are we going to do about brain? We thought about the first thing. How so, Master? Remember, all of us live inside the gut. We put a direct connection from our gut to the brain. Can you believe they call that a vagus nerve? Thinking if they name it after Las Vegas, what happens in the gut is going to stay in the gut? They're so wrong. What happens in the gut goes everywhere. In fact, you know the thing that makes them feel good, the serotonin thing? We don't let them produce much of that. We produce 90% of it right here ourselves. In fact, 70% of all their immune system is controlled by us along the gut lining. We tell it when it's time to go inflame, when it's time to shut down. In fact, everything they do, we control their emotions, we control their behavior, we control their decision making. But just like a good leader, we make them think they are in control. So sit back, relax. We have already taken over the world. And ladies and gentlemen, that's who we are. A beautiful container for microorganisms under their control, and they are actually controlling every part of it. Now, many of you believe this story is not true. So I'm going to tell you something. Go out and Google. There is a Nature paper that was published about 3 months ago that says how microbiome in your gut controls your amygdala and prefrontal cortex for their own benefit. That's a Nature paper published 2 months ago. In fact, if you Google every chronic disease, whether you call it Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety, obesity, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, any of these things, hardening of arteries, every one of the chronic disease is caused by the chronic inflammation. And the chronic inflammation is with the dysbiosis, the imbalance of your gut. So if you can fix your gut and the leaky gut, all the symptoms that we call diseases just simply melt away. And I started this company, and I tell you something that has never, I find every single day I wake up, you get emails from our customers saying, you have changed my life. I used to suffer from all these diseases, and they named them. And you read this email, and being an engineer, you never thought you're going to change people's life in the way that you do.
So Naveen, let me ask you a question here. So as you think about entrepreneurship, and do you differentiate in your mind the difference between like going after impact-related problems and creating a business that focuses on, creating a product for profit necessarily? And does that take a different type of person? Is that a different process?
So first of all, doing good and doing well are not mutually exclusive. If you want to do a small good in the world, go ahead and start a nonprofit. If you want to do a large good in the world, you start for-profit company, because profit is the engine that allows us to scale and to help billions of people. So to me, it's never the issue, never the question about are you doing for impact or are you doing it for profit. As a matter of fact, if you want to create $1 billion company, all you have to do is solve a $10 billion problem. And that's all you have to do, right? So if you want to create a $10 billion company, go out and solve a $100 billion problem. You want to create a $100 billion company, go out and solve a $1 trillion problem. What are those problems? Create abundance of education, abundance of healthcare, abundance of food, abundance of energy, abundance of fresh water. And every one of them is going to get solved because an entrepreneur in this room can do that. And that's the beauty that we started out with. This is the first time in the human history where individuals and a small group of people are capable of doing things that only the nation states did before. So imagine, going back to my space program, the only people who were used to go to the space were nation states and superpowers. When we land on the moon, not only we become the first private company, we become the fourth superpower. And I believe the entrepreneurs are going to be the superpowers by creating abundance of energy, the things that used to be done by the nation states. Healthcare, you heard Daniel. It is not going to be Obamacare or Trump care or Putin care. It is going to be someone in this room thinking that they can solve the problem by reimagining healthcare, by preventing from getting you sick, and by reversing when you are sick, not keeping you sick. Healthcare is the only industry that I know of that makes money from keeping you sick. As a customer, they never want you to be cured. If you have a chronic disease and you are a child, ka-ching, for lifetime, you have a drug for that, right? You have autoimmune diseases, they don't care why. Let's suppress the immune system. You have a headache, I don't care why. Let's just suppress the headache. It doesn't matter what you have, they simply suppress the symptom. And the inflammation that's causing the disease, the fire is still burning. And unless you suppress the inflammation, you're going to constantly find something else. And that's the reason you take drug for one disease, you get 3 more diseases. You take drug for 3 of them, you get 9 more. And by the time you get to my age, you're popping more pills than blueberries. And that's a problem.
So Naveen, let me ask you, and I think given we're running out of time, maybe we'll end on this, but the power of 10 is our theme this year. And I think it'd be really interesting to hear if you have any predictions for what you think the next 10 years might look like, either in space or having to do with health. And
Sure. So there is no doubt, I can tell you in the next 10 years, there are going to be humans walking on other planets. And there is going to be a baby born on the moon. And someone is going to look up and say, son, we come, or daughter, we come from that planet. And it's going to be pointing at the Earth. That is going to happen in our lifetime. People are going to be bending on their knees and saying, honey, do you want to go to honeymoon with me on the moon? There's going to be people, that is all going to happen in our lifetime. I believe every industry that we know of today is going to get disrupted, from healthcare to construction industry. If you are in any industry and you're not here year after year, you are going to be disrupted by some entrepreneur. Half of the Fortune 500 companies are going to go out of business. The king is dying. The new king is going to be born, and there's going to be someone in this room who has enough passion to go out and dedicate their life to making it happen. I can tell you that education system is going to completely be changed. So if you went to an Ivy League college, whether Stanford or Harvard, enjoy while it lasts, because it's going to be gone. Right. Same way, there is no doubt we're going to have abundance of energy, and it's going to become like the next air. All of us are sitting in this room together. We don't fight over something which is called air and oxygen, because we believe it's in abundance. And that's the reason we don't fight over it. Everything else, we value them because we believe they are scarce and they're finite. What if the energy was the next air, and it is free and democratic? What if you have abundance of energy, you can even distill the dirtiest water, and you can have abundance of fresh, clean water in Africa? If you have abundance of energy, abundance of water, what if we can create abundance of food? What if we can solve actually the root cause of the problems rather than symptoms? Is the water really the problem, or is agriculture the problem, or do we really need to fix the cattle? And can we create beef out of a stem cell instead of raising cattle that can give us all the agriculture we need and all the water that we use? And all I can tell you is we are living in the most amazing times, and enjoy. This is the time, our time has come. Our generation will be the generation that is going to solve the problem of people falling sick. And if we don't solve this problem, we're going to watch our children and grandchildren suffer, and we are not going to be that generation. So if you believe in what we are doing here, stand up and say, I am going to be that generation. I'm going to be part of that generation that is actually going to go out and solve the problem, not watch someone else suffer. And if you believe in that, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Naveen Jain, thank you so much, my friend. Incredible.